What you doing? You can tell everybody? Hi, guys! I know it's kind of like never know when we're gonna pop. When Gavin and I are gonna pop in. Okay, you can go if you want. Oh, you wanna cut us? Okay. Hi. So I did a very brief live last night, and I kind of like ran in and ran out, and I think a few people were like, "Where'd you go?" So I just want to, hey, everybody, as they're coming in. Tonight, what I'm going to talk about, and I'll say hi to everyone in a moment, what I want to talk about is the impact of the second inaugural speech that Roosevelt gave and what his intention was for our country at the time. And I want you to put it in perspective with what's going on right now with us as a country and as a world, really. But really thinking about, and I think this is the idea, is really thinking about the concepts and the ideas that he was proposing during that time. The first thing that happened that I think is important for everybody to understand is in 1936, Congress enacted the Rural Electricity Act. Check this out, the Rural Electricity Act. So what that means is that people in rural areas, upstate New York, whatever, there were places all over the country that didn't have electricity yet. So when Roosevelt said, this is what we're going to do, and Congress approved of it, there were a lot of things going on when Roosevelt took office. He was obviously elected the first time in 1932. And he served those first 4 years, and his job was to tackle and put together the country. We had people that were starving. We had people that were not working. And his first line of attack was putting America back to work and giving people back the greatness that was America. And when we look at what he started to talk about in his inaugural address in 1937, there were terms like social justice that were used in the full address. There were terms like nonpartisan and partisan politics. He used these kinds of terms as we must be these people. Now, what's interesting is that he brought in also, because it was we were in peace, he knew in 1936 that we were heading toward war. And he knew it because Germany was kind of taking over other continents at the time. Mussolini came into power. And also Franco in Spain was also being recognized by Hitler and Mussolini. So there were a lot of things going on in Europe, and the American people our attitude was, hey, that's over there. Hey, Cruise Boston, I want to say hi to my fabulous mod. She's amazing. So thank you for being here. So a lot of things that were happening in Europe at the time, Americans really were dealing with putting food on their table. And we did not have, and he talks about this a lot in the speech. I'm only going to read you sections of it, a couple sections of it that I think pertain to what we're talking about in relationship to what's going on with the coronavirus. But I think that it's very important that we understand that times were bad. People had nothing. And this is one of the things that's very heartfelt, and it never really had, and to be really upfront with you, it never really had the hate that kind of has come out today against rich people. But it really, when he speaks, and I want to say this, when he speaks about in his speech, and for those of you just joining, I'm talking about the 1937 inaugural address of FDR. When he speaks and he says things like social justice, and he talks about people who have so much and people who have very little, he really wasn't stating it as this is bad and this is good like we've made it today, right? We've kind of made this is bad, this is good. And what he was really talking about, and I want to really underline this, is that everything was skewed in the sense that the people who had gotten rich, and I think some people think that a little bit today, but that the rich in this I want to say in his discussion of it, the first 4 years was really about rooting out so much deception in the stock market and how they were just selling paper in 1920, in the 1920s, right? So by the time he took power, it was about like pulling apart all of these people that were committing crimes. And he really wanted to put a permanent end to a lot of these illegal activities that were, for instance, bootlegging. So we haven't really talked about that, but he ended prohibition as well. So the things that happen, and I've always said, like, my thing about prohibition was that life has pointy edges, and people need to take the edge off. So when we really look at what was happening during that time period, it becomes very important in terms of history repeating itself, right? So when I say this tonight, I'm going to share with you a little bit about from his speech that I think is very pertinent to what we're talking about with the coronavirus. I want you to really look at and compare in your own heart how that goes with that goes with the, I want to say, the comparison between what we're going through now in terms of, being sequestered, right? In a sense, we're quarantined. Now, I want to just say, before I say hi to everybody in a minute, two things I want to really bring up. The biggest reason, and you all know this already, I said it the other night and I've been saying it and you're hearing it on TV now, but the biggest reason it is so important that we separate ourselves right now is because we are trying to slow the virus speed. Because you see, our hospitals and we don't have enough ventilators. We don't have enough hospital beds. And by the way, this isn't just America. It's kind of all over the world. We are behind the times with a lot of things. And I think what I want to say is it's really not the time to blame any one person. I think that it's so important for us to come together. And this was one of the things I think that was very remarkable about Roosevelt. It's very interesting because Teddy was a tried and true Republican, right? And you have FDR, who was a true Democrat. And I'm going to share about, because tonight we're talking about 1937, his second inauguration. I am going to show the comparison because I really think it's a very interesting, I want to say, progression from his first inaugural speech to now. And there also were a few times he talks about the four corners, and there's some interesting things that he talks about in some addresses to Congress. But we need to come together and look at how history repeats itself. My father, many of you know, jumped on D-Day. He was in World War II. And the reason I talk about this time period, and I'm drawing the association, is, you see, and for those of you that are Jewish, you will really understand this, that the Jews used to say, what we do not discuss and talk about is destined to repeat. Now, unfortunately, what has happened is we've taken some of that history and we've turned it into something that's more of a battlefield now than it was then. And so I really want to underline that what Roosevelt was talking about when he was talking about the idea of, never have so many, so many have so much, and we need to give more to people who have so little. And so what he was talking about was not stealing from the rich. It was more that he wanted an America. His vision of America was one that we all shared, which was a place where we all had decency. And I think it's really, a wonderful vision he had. And there is absolutely an understanding now of how he got elected 4 times. Roosevelt was actually elected to the presidential office 4 times. And I'm going to address some of the stuff in a second. He actually he died on, I think it was April 10th, 1945. So we actually never saw the E-Day, and Truman took over, which in this kind of series, I want to take you through some of the stuff we're going through and compare it to what was going on as the world was facing war. There was oppression going on in Europe, and really the entire continent it was not really, Hitler knew if he got London, he was going to get the British Navy. He was going to get, the fabulous Royal Air Force. There were so many things that would later strategically become important. And how does this relate? How does this relate to a virus that starts wherever it starts, right? And it goes across, it just goes through countries. Well, what it does is it reminds us that we are always vulnerable. We're always vulnerable, no matter how much we have, no matter how much we don't have. And we really have to remember that it's very much a time when we need to look at how history is repeating itself so that we are much more, I want to say, educated about the terminology we're using today. So when Roosevelt was talking about social justice, he was talking about no unemployment insurance, no care for the elderly. People got old and they didn't have any health insurance, right? We still don't. He even talks in that speech about the problem of health coverage for people. And this was in it's like 1937. But I want to say this to you. Remember, just to give you a little brief thing, when we look at what was going on in 1915, 1916, 1917, by the time we came out of World War I, it was not good. No one felt they won. Okay, they signed a Versailles Treaty, which really humiliated Germany, and that was the festering that was going on. And Hitler had been in that war, so it was really something. And he was already a madman, but he came out of that idea of being humiliated by the Treaty of Versailles. So when we look at what was going on, by the time those people came back, and they really became our government in the 1930s. So we're looking at these people in the 1930s who had been to war, and they're like, never again. So they were terrified of making any decisions that were going to upset anybody outside of their circle. These were the people that were the isolationists. This is very important that you get that. The isolationists were very, very much in opposition to just about everything that Roosevelt was saying. So we've got actually the isolationists, you have, and he was, of course, the Democratic Party, and then you even have Republicans in there. So I want you to notice there was this triangle, right? We had three different factions going on by the time Roosevelt was elected and by the time Prohibition was later lifted. Okay, so let's talk about, I want to kind of say hi to everybody. I'm going to take a moment, say hi to people and like, hey, and then I want to share with you parts of the speech and talk to you about also what's going on with you with the coronavirus. Okay, let's see. Oh, Tremaine, you changed your name, Professor. I'm like going, hey, Professor, what's up? Okay. I want to say shout out to a couple people. Hey, Tremaine, good to see you. Where have I been? Well, to be really upfront with all of you, I have another business that has completely been shuttered by the coronavirus. And so what has happened is that I've been doing readings for people. And so it's taken up time in my weekend because I've had to bring in some money to pay my bills. So that's where I've been. And I want to just do a special shout out to Cruz Boston, who has been the most fantastic moderator. And I just really just heart to you and thank you for everything. Joanne, it's late for you, girl. Hi from the UK. Nana, I want to say hi to you. Joanna. Yes, exactly. Of course it's going on in the UK. And what's very interesting too is a lot of people, I guess some people know, FDR was actually eighth cousins of Churchill. So they were actually related, which eighth cousins we kind of go today, but I'm ninth cousins with Jane Fonda. So figure that, or Peter Fonda, And the point I'm making is that they were related. They were actually related. So that was very interesting. Let's see. Couldn't agree more. Definitely time to come together. Melissa, I think you're right on. And I think that one of the things I want to say to you about the coming together conversation is this, that when there is an emergency, when people can't eat, when there is no livelihood, no money coming in, one of the things we must do is look at what we can do for each other. And one of the things the people in my neighborhood did, which I thought was really sweet, I was going to put it on the board. I actually put it on, and then I realized I didn't hit send. But they said, hey, if anybody knows of an elderly neighbor who needs anything, let us know. We're happy to go to the market. I don't know where they would go at this point because, and pick up stuff for you and leave it on your porch. And I just thought, this is the kind of thing that the coming together is. And what I'm telling everybody, how everybody's hoarding, you know what I mean, right? Rudy, I know you know. Joanne, Cynthia, it's like, you go to the store and it's like empty shelves. So here's my suggestion. Find out who the hoarders are in your neighborhood, the people that bought all the food, because in about 3 or 4 days, they're going to have so much food that's going bad. They're going to be cooking for the neighborhood. So go over and get food from them if they're still healthy. It's like, Tom Hanks and his wife. And let's see, if virus doesn't have a host, it'll die off. That's why it's so important to stop big gatherings. Thank you for that, Melissa. The other thing to note is that every day here in America, the CDC is giving us little bits of information. And what they're doing, as I mentioned, is trying to slow it so that people, because you're going to get it, right? But you can get it slowly over time. There will be hospital beds for you. There will be, ICU units. There will be oxygen. The reason that, again, is important is because we don't want the tent cities like they had in Wuhan. You see, we don't have the capacity here, and they don't have it in Italy either. And that's why I really sent out prayers to Italy because they just don't have it. So this is what's going on. If it slows, then what will happen is the people who actually need those things. Can I tell you something? I'm always touching my face. So I'm like, if I even walk out the door, I'm going to get it. I just get that feeling. But it's very important what Melissa Costner just said. I agree with her on that. Cynthia, I know Eleanor Roosevelt was very impressive. Let's see. Hi, Nikki. Let's. Oh yeah. Tina, yeah, your animal. I'm sorry about that. And what I want to say too is there's really nothing you can say about. There's really nothing to say about losing a pet. To me, it's the most devastating thing. I can't, it's like I remember saying to my dad, I said, you know what? I'm going to be better when you die than when my dog died. My father said, yeah, I know. It's like, okay, let's see. Terrifying Nola. Idiots trying to keep partying and the deaths just started. Cops had to break up the crowd on Bourbon Street. Yeah, it's kind of like that, that sharing of needles. We have to be responsible. Hey, Alaska. Hello, CH. Little snow. Thank you. Welcome. Let's see. Oh, gosh. Are you really that person? Melissa Cruz Boston, you're so smart. We'll see, you're smarter than the average bear. And by the way, everybody, thank you, Sandra. Yeah, if you think about it, give it a thumbs up. That's what they're saying. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. I appreciate that. I think if I was a man in here as a mod, I'd have to be because I have a crush. Okay, got it. Let's see. Love to you all. Hope wins news. Okay, so Sensible Crime just said, I hope everybody's not too stressed out. Can I tell you something? I'm stressed out. Everybody's stressed. And what I want to say is I'm just doing that. Just breathe and just drop your shoulders. If we just keep saying that, oh my gosh, Ruthie, are you really in Montana? Oh, I'm so jealous. I think I want to go visit. Okay. I don't know, Sandra. I don't know. Hoped I was female. I don't know. All right. So here's what we're going to do. So what I'd like to do is just say a couple more words about the coronavirus right now, and then I want to share with you. So the thing I want to say is that everybody's going to not know what to do. And, there is a thing of we look to leadership. Okay. And the reality is I really am in a place right now, and I want to say this to all of you, please don't even think about getting into anything that's going to put you in upset right now. You lower your immunity. Stay away from all of the Facebook arguments, right? Just I'm telling you, you know what I do? I don't block my friends. I stop following all the politics thing because I can get into it and it just gets me insane. And I'm sure it'll get all of you insane. You know, and here's the thing I want to say. It's just love and peace, love and peace. Send everybody love and peace, because the more you send that out from you, just keep saying, okay, God, show me what the next intended kind thing to do. Show me the kind deeds today. And I want to share with each of you, do one kind thing for someone each day, and it will help you like I can't even tell you. Focus on helping someone else and your life will just shoot up exponentially. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to tell you something, Ruthie. We all have some kind of deficiency and immune. I have a breathing issue and I don't do it. I agree with you, Cynthia. However, I'm going to share with you, Cynthia just said, life is politics. We're in it whether we want to be or not. And I want to say this. This is the beauty of Roosevelt, and you've given me I've got the inaugural speech here. Okay. I'm going to share with you just a little bit of this. I'm going to share you pieces of it, but I don't want to share the whole thing because it's quite a bit. But I want to share with you just a little bit. Okay, so he starts with, my fellow countrymen, when 4 years ago we met to inaugurate a president, the Republic, single-minded in anxiety, stood in spirit here. We dedicated ourselves to the fulfillment of a vision, to speed the time when there would be for all the people that security and peace essential to the pursuit of happiness. We of the Republic pledged ourselves to drive from the temple of our ancient faith those who had profaned it, to end by action, tireless and unafraid, the stagnation and despair of that day. We did those first things first. But our covenant with ourselves did not stop there. Instinctively, we recognized a deeper need, the need to find through our government the instrument of our united purpose to solve for the individual the ever-rising problems of a complex civilization. And he goes on here a bit, but I want to come back to, because it's more, believe it or not, these pages are slightly out of order, but I want to share this part with you, but I'm going to come back just to that one thing, is that this is a very significant opening. And I want to point out to you 3 things that you heard there. He called us a republic. Now, what is important about that? A republic is a society based on our Constitution, okay? Unlike a democracy, which is based on what everybody thinks should be done. So he's talking about calling, and he then gets into calling the Congress forth to, to really stand still and do a nonpartisan choices. So I'm going to go on here. You ready for a little more stories? Yes, let's see. Okay, I know, right? United, powerful. Thank you for that. So I want to go back, the 3 things, because I did say this. Wait. Okay. The 3 things that are very important here. He talks about we met to inaugurate a president. Well, he's talking about himself. And he's saying the Republic, single-minded in anxiety. Everyone felt anxiety. And he's saying that everyone stood in spirit here, meaning we all were standing together. Those are the 3 things that are most important. You see, everybody was single-minded in their anxiety. And I love how he really goes into the idea of security and peace are essential to the pursuit of happiness. So that really is something he defines for us when we talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We must give people, each other, peace in order to achieve that. So I want to, and here it is. Okay, so this is now just story time, and then we're going to talk about how this relates. This is the last page and a half of the speech. And then I want to talk about how he really calls forth Congress to set aside partisan ideas. And it's really amazing. He says, this is now we're on page 8. And I just want to see if everybody's still with me. I can never tell. It's kind of good. Together we are not alone. Oh, Surya, is anybody here for the first time? We all have TP, baby. I got so much toilet paper, it's scary. And I didn't even buy it all. Somebody who works for me just kept bringing it to me. I'm like, God. Okay. Okay, good. Everybody can hear me. Okay, cool. Let's move on. I see a great nation upon a great continent, blessed with a great wealth of natural resources. Its 130 million people are at peace among themselves. They are making their country a good neighbor among the nations. I see a United States which can demonstrate that under democratic methods of government, national wealth can be translated into a spreading volume of human comforts hitherto unknown, and the lowest standard of living can be raised far above the level of mere subsistence. But here's the challenge to our democracy. In this nation, I see tens of millions of its citizens, a substantial part of the whole population, who are at this very moment denied the greater part of what the very lowest standards of today call the necessities of life. I see millions of families trying to live on income so meager that the pall of family disaster hangs over them day to day. I see millions whose daily lives in city and on farm continue under conditions labeled indecent by a so-called polite society half a century ago. I see millions denied education, recreation, and the opportunity to better their lot and the lot of their children. I see millions lacking the means to buy the products of farm and factory, and by their poverty, denying work and productiveness to many other millions. I see 1/3 of a nation ill-housed, ill-clad, ill-nourished. It is not in despair that I paint you that picture. I paint it for you in hope, because the nation, our nation, seeing and understanding the injustices in it, proposes to paint it out. We are determined to make every American citizen the subject of this country's interest and concern, and we will never regard any faithful, law-abiding group within our borders as superfluous. The test of our progress is not whether we add more to the abundance of those who have much. It is whether we provide enough for those who have so little. And that's page 9 of an 11-page speech. And I want to pause here because I really want to share with you the way in which, now is this, now wait, we don't have a radical dictator. You think we do, but I'm going to share something with you, Melissa. And I say this because I think this is a time when we have to understand that we as a people, we the people, created the consciousness. And so either, and I want to say this to all of you, either God is or God isn't. See, we have to understand that this is what Roosevelt was talking about. He also knew, and he talks about this in a later speech, the dangers of the democracy. He talked about the dangers of, he knew that he was giving away millions and billions. By the way, in his next speech, in his next inauguration, I want to be very clear that he really talks about, how the war machine is going to make us money. Because the only way he could get Congress to agree to make all of this war material for Europe, because really we were sending things over to the, I'll tell you in a second, red like wine. I was, really what we're talking about, he was sending munitions. We didn't have enough airplanes. There were so many things we didn't have, but we were making this and the idea was in his next election, he wants to send that overseas. Now, I want to say to you that to many, he was a dictator. I want you to really get that. Half of the country thought he was a dictator because he asked for powers that the president heretofore had never had. He asked for the rights to make decisions as if we were at war. And people were, I just went offline. I don't know if I'm still on, but I will try. If you lost me, I will start again. Okay, so I'm just going to say what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a pause in here. I'm going to talk about that, Lizzie. I'm going to put a pause in here, and I'll be right back. I'm going to go out and come back for part 2. I'll see you in a bit.